Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sports Shorts Daily, presented by LeBear's Casino. Ronnie Rance alongside TK Tommy Chrysan over at Court Street Cafe. Downtown Port Allen is where Tommy is today, and I am at an undisclosed location presented by the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, where we have tickets on sale now at lasportshall.com for the January 9th event in Baton Rouge. We'll tell you about that in a minute, as well as the Hall of Fame induction ceremony next summer, including the likes of Daniel Cormier, Simone Augustus, Drew Brees, and many more. Check it out at lasportshall.com. Of course, LeBear's Casino in the ESPN Bet Sportsbook was buzzing this past weekend. It will be buzzing all the way through the end of the Super Bowl for football season, bowl season. Kind of tough right now, Tommy, speaking about bowl season, to try to make too many picks and do too many things because who's going to play and who's going to sit out and all that is a big part of obviously the dollar amount and the number and the spread, and unfortunately we just really don't know right now. The one thing we do know is Bo Nix, who lost in the championship game of the Pac-12, will play in the bowl game according to his coach. He made that comment that Bo will play, so that's big for Oregon. So the Final Four comes out, Tommy, and in my opinion, everybody has an opinion. No doubt, Michigan and Washington got in, and the conversation, and we all felt like they were in, and the decision was between the third and the fourth spot, and it ends up being Texas and Alabama, and Florida State and Georgia get left out. The world is aghast, but I have an opinion that the committee got it right, but I agree with the fact that it's appalling that Florida State didn't get in. I think it's kind of like, I kind of feel both ways. There were 5 teams that deserved to get in. 4 teams that deserved to get in for 2 spots. And I mean, any of those 2 that didn't get in was going to be pissed and have a reason to feel like they got robbed. Georgia and obviously Florida State feel like they got robbed, but Florida State being an undefeated ACC team with wins over LSU and LSU and Florida, and doing it the way that many teams have done before. We think back to Cardell Jones with a third-string quarterback and the backup quarterbacks. Georgia winning. There's multiple teams that won national championships with a backup quarterback in the playoffs. I do feel for Florida State and feel like they were robbed, and they have a reason to feel the way they do. But I do believe that the committee got the right 4 teams.
Well, Ronnie, I think Georgia has more of an argument than Florida State. But here's the problem. The committee, we can blow a lot of holes in this committee. If they put so much weight on Jordan Travis being hurt, they shouldn't have put Florida State at number 4 going into the North Alabama game. They should have had him at 7 or 8, right, saying, okay, it's a different team. Because then it would have been easier for them to, when they struggled against Louisville, keep them at 7 or 8 and put them at right, 9. But they put Florida State at 4. At 4 after they knew Travis was hurt. Then yesterday they come out and say the quarterback being hurt was a huge factor. Well, why wasn't that a factor 2 weeks ago? I think Georgia has a bigger argument. I feel for Florida State. If you're one of them players, that's what I feel for. You and I were both NCAA student athletes. I feel for those players who did what they were supposed to do. And an argument could be made that they won with their third-string quarterback. That shows how good they really are. They didn't go get beat by Louisville 28-0, But, man, look, that's, I think, root of the problem is they put them at 4 when they knew Jordan Travis was hurt, because now they put themselves open to criticism. But, and then it really looks like whoever won out of Alabama and Georgia was going to be in. And that's what happened. But Georgia has got more of an argument than Florida State, in my opinion, okay, because of the body of work. And Georgia would be favored over everybody else in the top 8. Florida State would be favored over nobody in the top 10 currently with, the situation that they are. And there's subjectivity involved when you have 13 people in Grapevine, Texas having a meeting, okay? There's going to be some room for error. And look, let me fast forward you for a minute. The discussion next year is going to be who deserves the 4 buys. There's going to be 12 teams in the play. So then they're going to get an argument to 15 that thought they should have had to buy. Right, back to this year. I think the committee got it right. But here's another thing I got a big problem with. I might be the only one in America with this problem. If you had to consider that Florida State didn't have their quarterback, why was the fact that Michigan didn't have their head coach for 6 games due to NCAA issues Why were they not put on the back shelf for breaking NCAA rules? So basically, the committee's saying, look, you can break some NCAA rules, we'll still put you in, but don't go 13-0 with your backup quarterback. Then we're not going to put you in. I'm appalled that that the entire selection show, it never came up once about Michigan breaking rules. I read a ton of national articles this week. Nobody brought it up, so I guess that's okay. But I'm in the minority. I get it. And you said on the radio Saturday, it's not the committee to be judge and jury. Well, there's no reason to be judge and jury when the coach was suspended for 6 games. There was a reason he was suspended. And Michigan dropped all of their litigation against the Big Ten and fired 2 coaches. I think something went wrong just based on those facts. And again, and then what happened? If Michigan wins the whole thing, which Bama's going to beat them by double digits. I ain't worried about them winning. But if they were to win it, then they got to vacate the championship a year from now. How does that look? Of course, we know Reggie Bush lost the Heisman, but he still won the Heisman. So, it's the oldest saying in Hollywood, it's showbiz and marketing and publicity is I don't care what you say about me, just say something. Well, the whole world's talking about college football right now. And, it's not going to affect the 43 bowl game, but it's going to affect, the championship games and with Bama and Michigan and then Texas and Washington and the point spreads are out, and we'll see how it plays out.
I agree with the thing that of all the stuff you just said, the thing I agree with the most is, you didn't knock down Florida State last week with the Travis injury, but you chose to do it this week. And look, a lot of people expected them to knock it down last week. That was the talk and the buzz going into the selection, was that they were going to get penalized for Jordan Travis's injury with Florida State. And once you put them in, then you're saying, okay, so the Travis injury happens, you don't penalize them basically 2 weeks in a row. Then all of a sudden now you choose to. I mean, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. And no doubt Georgia would be favored. I feel bad for Georgia too. I mean, they 29 straight games, you lose one, and I know you're not supposed to talk about what happened in the previous, the last couple of years, but my God, they're the 2-time defending national champs. 29 games in a row, and here they are. They lose to an Alabama team at home by 3, and some controversial calls, and you don't get the benefit of the doubt. Like, if anybody gets the benefit of the doubt, it should be Georgia, and so that part kind of bothers me. The Florida State, oh my God, they did all they could. I mean, it wasn't their fault that Clemson wasn't very good this year, and Miami wasn't as good as they thought they were going to be, and LSU wasn't as good as they thought they would be. I mean, they blow out LSU in the second half and have one of the more dominant halves, shut down Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels and all that in the second half, and they get no reward for it. They get no benefit of the doubt. They take care of Florida with a backup quarterback on the road. They don't get any benefit of the doubt. And look, they were atrocious against Louisville, but their defense was sensational. I mean, Louisville with a 6th-year quarterback couldn't do anything on offense. And so they get no credit for that, even though we know they would have had their second string back for the bowl game. It was just a concussion situation. So it's really an atrocious deal. I hope Georgia beats Florida State in the Orange Bowl so that we can kind of not have a UCF situation where, Florida State's making rings and calling themselves the national champions, even though that's not going to happen.
Well, they're going to do that. And why not Liberty call themselves national champions? Okay, they're undefeated, and they probably will win their bowl game. But, it's tough. Life's not fair, Ronnie. And, it happens. And sports is not fair. I mean, and it's all about changes, okay? How many years was there not a DH in the NL, in the National League? I mean, there wasn't a 3-point line decades ago. I mean, things change, and Auburn got screwed out the 2-team playoff many years ago. It's always going to happen. It just happens to be Florida State this year. But kicking it back around, I think Georgia has a much stronger argument for why they're not in the playoff than Florida State does, based on the current situation of the teams. But as you and I have agreed, the hole in the theory here is the committee didn't treat the injury last week the way they treated it this week. And that's the fault of the committee, 100%.
The other thing too is that, like I said back earlier, you had four teams: Texas, Alabama, Florida State, and Georgia, who all deserved to be in the Final Four. In my opinion, I thought Florida State was going to get in; that there was no way they were going to not put in an ACC champion that was 13-0, et cetera, et cetera. As much as they, again, because of what they've shown over the last 2 weeks, they have not penalized them with the loss of their QB so until now. And so I thought, okay, they're going to get in. And then there's a battle for third between Georgia, Alabama, and Texas. And then, the issue I thought Georgia was always out because there was no way they could lose. It's all about what have you done for me lately? It's the trending argument has been one that's been around forever. So, okay, so Alabama's going to win out over Georgia because Alabama's been trending up and they just beat them last week on a neutral field. But then Texas is sitting there saying, hey, we beat Alabama and we've done nothing to slow down either. So, I thought, the argument, but then at the end of the day, is there going to be a playoff without an SEC team? And I think the committee said we'd rather have Florida State pissed off at us and the ACC pissed off at us than Texas and Alabama. Like that, it would have been much bigger than for those conferences and fan bases to have an issue than Florida State.
Well, Georgia would have been in if Oklahoma State would beat Texas. And Georgia would be in that spot, but that didn't happen. The other thing too, right? This is all about money. Okay, the college football playoff makes millions on top of millions, and it's much more, glitter much more there if Alabama's playing Michigan than if Florida State's playing Michigan. They're not supposed to think of that, but again, they're human beings. 13 of them in a room, been in that room for 4 or 5 days, whatever it was. They met for the last 7, 8 weeks, whatever that is, but you knew when you got up Sunday morning, you got ready to put on the show at 11. I'm like most people, I watched every minute of it. You knew there was going to be some type of controversy. You just didn't know what, where, when, and how, or if Georgia would have won, then you'd have Georgia and maybe Florida State, and then Texas might have got left out if Georgia would have won, okay, because then Texas would have beaten a 2-loss Bama team. But again, if a frog had wings, he wouldn't bump his ass. So we could sit here and go over and over all day long, but it is what it is. And, we knew somebody wasn't going to like it. Next year, somebody's not going to like that they're not in the top 4 seeds. Somebody's not going to like that they were that 13th team that didn't get in the 12-team playoff. Ronnie, we see it, the NCAA baseball tournament. That 65th, 66th baseball team that doesn't get a chance to go to Omaha gets mad, okay? College basketball. But you'd rather have the 65th team mad than what you called the 5th team. The committee said they're the 5th best team. That's where I think the hole is in this entire story, and you and I have agreed on that.
The Heisman situation, the voting is due today, right? The final ballots of people
I think
haven't
4
voted.
o'clock today. It's sometime today.
So we'll know by tomorrow who the final 3 are, or 4, however many they decide to bring to New York. I would think Nix, Daniels, and Penix would be your final 3 that would make their way to New York. With Penix played what? Penix threw an interception. Nick threw an interception in their Pac-12 championship game on Friday. Obviously, Washington won. The fact that Bo Nix didn't get the ball back at the end of the game with a chance to go down and win it, we all pretty much agree that we think Jaden's got it now, right?
I think Jaden Daniels is going to win it. I mean, I think those 3 will be in New York, and I think it'll be Daniels. I mean, the LSU marketing machine has not stopped. They're pushing it out like crazy. They had a billboard in Las Vegas right before the Oregon-Washington game. That was a Jaden Daniels billboard bought by LSU, to just further promote it because that's a recruiting tool. Because Brian Kelly and his coach used to tell guys, hey, if you're in the hunt for the Heisman, look what we're going to do. Look what we did for Jaden Daniels for you. And again, the mere fact he's going to New York helps the LSU brand. It helps recruiting. And I'm Hunter McCann and I are hoping he wins it because we're going to both pick up more than a couple of dollars if he does. But I think he will win it. I can't see how anybody would they think today would change. And again, the votes are in today, so the winner is going to be final tonight. We just won't know it. I mean, you can't have a new vote on Thursday and all that. So I think Jaden Daniels wins the Heisman Trophy as he should.
Unbelievable. If he does, it'll be 4 years from the date that that Joe Burrow did it, which is just incredible. All right, we'll talk plenty more about that when the finalist list comes out. As far as bowl games are concerned, the Raging Cajuns taking on Jacksonville State in the Louisiana Bowl. They folks, if you're a Raging Cajun fan, you've gone to that thing so many times over the last decade. You probably have you probably know at least one concessionaire by name. Hey, Stace Barber, good to see you, Barber. I'll take the hot nuts again. You know what I mean? Like unbelievable. Um, for Tulane. Oh, what a disastrous weekend it was. They lose a championship game at home against SMU. Tommy Chrysan was a lock of the week. Tulane going to win. You know, TK grew up in the parish, a Green Wave fan. He let that influence his thinking. He went against all the computers and drug Ronnie Rance down the sewer with him. And, of course, Tulane never in it against SMU. They get beat at home.
Well, first thing, they couldn't fill the stadium, which is bad. Okay, and they gave away free tickets in the student union. They couldn't fill. Now, the students showed up for the most part, but the stadium, well, over 5,000 empty seats. Playing for a championship, playing to go to a New Year's Six bowl game.
And then you want to know why Willie Fritz left.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, you can't fill the stadium for a championship game, a team that's had a miraculous, great 2-year run. You can't fill the stadium, and then, you know, SMU, give them credit. They came in and got it done. Computers said they would get it done. And then, of course, shortly thereafter, Willie Fritz becomes the coach at Houston. Slade Nagel, by the way, named the interim coach for the Tulane Green Wave. I know his dad, Johnny
for the
Nagel,
playoffs,
a good friend of mine. Yeah. So, for the bowl game. So they'll play Virginia Tech in the Military Bowl on Wednesday, December 27th. But Tulane, my first thought was that 2-year run, we're going to be talking about like 8 years from now. You remember that 2-year run? Because it's going to be back to the bottom, back to the bad days. And I saw the list of potential candidates put together by one of the New Orleans writers for Tulane. I'm surprised Tim Rebo wasn't on that list, but yeah, maybe he's not quite ready for that. But there was no names that would be that splash higher that would get more people into Ullman Stadium by no stretch. And there's a lot of big-time assistants out there with ties to Louisiana. We'll just let it play out. There's a brand new AD at Tulane. We'll see. He's got a big thing to do now because he said when he got hired he was not going to let Willie Fritz leave on his watch. Well, guess what? Willie Fritz is a Houston Cougar head coach now. And Fritz spent a lot of time at Sam Houston, so he's very familiar with the Houston area. Houston's got more people than Louisiana has. He knows the high school coaches. They know him. I'm not going to be surprised if he makes a difference for Houston going forward. But back to Tulane, it was a tough, probably the worst weekend in Tulane football history.
They lose a championship game at home, and they lose their coach. Now, supposedly reports are they did offer Willie Fritz $4.5 million, which was what they were willing to go to. That was the max they could justify. The coach that just got let go at Houston was making 4.2 or 4.3. So obviously we expect, and reports that we had heard was that they were willing to pay Fritz at least a $5 million. So, I mean, he's going to make more money. He's playing in the Big 12. And he's going to like I said, he knew this is not sustainable at Tulane. The only thing that's oogie is don't say you and your wife, this is your final job last year and you're going to retire here and all that. And, we're in our 60s. We signed a 10-year deal. Like, don't just I hate when coaches say that and then leave. Like, clearly you didn't mean it. I mean, just say, hey, we love it here. We have no intention of leaving. Like, that's it. That's all you got to ever say. You don't need to guarantee anything.
As of today, we love it here.
Yeah.
But he's not the only coach to do that in all
right.
sports.
No, it's nothing again. But like two things happen. One is, I mean, he backed the wrong horse. He wanted, the assistant AD that was currently on the staff to get the job. They didn't hire that person. They went outside. So that was the death nail number one. And then, and then you just can't compete. I mean, Houston's backed by Tillman Fertitta, who owns all the Landry Corporation, the 30 restaurant chains around the country and Golden Nugget, et cetera. He's their biggest backer. And so you're not going to be able to outbid Houston. They're going to improve their facilities. They're now going into a bigger conference. So all that was working against you. And then, oh, by the way, if you thought you had any chance, you lose at home to, as you mentioned, and 80% full stadium that seats less than 30,000. So, but yet you want to be taken as serious. So it was never going to happen. These were the great old days of the Tulane, outside of beating Allen Risher and LSU 3 out of 4 years or something like that back in the late 70s, early 80s. This is the other best time that they've ever had.
Well,
and in the undefeated season.
The 98 team went 12-0 and won the bowl game.
Sean King at quarterback.
And, of course, the 73 team broke the 25-game losing streak to LSU, 14-0 in the old Tulane Stadium. And then the past 2 years, that's it. For Tulane.
That's the list.
Other than the day they left the Southeastern Conference, this is the worst weekend in Tulane football history, maybe Tulane sports history, maybe just football, because basketball getting, hammered by the, for breaking the rule, point shaving thing might have been a little bit worse of a story, but this is was the worst weekend for Tulane football ever, and we hope somebody come in and turn it around, but I don't see it happening. You're looking at another period that's not going to look anything like the last couple of years.
Speaking of terrible, Saints. How about this, Tommy? The Saints were in first place a couple weeks ago. They're in third place now in the NFC South, but behind Atlanta, who beat the Jets. Just bet against the Jets the rest of the year. I mean, they're so bad they can't move anything on. Atlanta beats the Jets. Tampa Bay wins. Therefore, the Saints, by virtue of losing, they were down 21-0, 6:45 into the game. 6 minutes and 45 seconds into the game on Sunday, the Saints were down 21-0. There were, no exaggeration, a third of the crowd was the Lions fans. A third of the crowd were Lions fans.
They bought tickets from Saints season ticket holders who have had enough. And so it was almost a home game for the Lions. I remember a couple of times when the camera panned through and I'm looking at all the Barry Sanders jerseys and other Lions gear. And I'm thinking
the lower bowl, the lower bowl behind the visitor bench, from the end zone to end zone, from goal line to goal line, the plaza level, the bottom level behind the Lions bench was about 80% Lions fans.
And that's Saints season ticket holder seats.
Sure.
So they sold them on wherever, the secondary market, because they're tired. They know, and look, it's easy for me to say today, but they got to have a full house cleaning for the Saints. Top to bottom, that might even include Mickey Loomis, who, for the most part, has done a great job over time, but it might just be time. But I don't know if Gail Benson's going to do all that. She's either going to do that or put the team up for sale. So the Saints are in a bad spot for lots of reasons right now, and nobody can see it turning around. And the other thing, yesterday was the first game of a 3-game homestand. They had a 3-game homestand in like 5 years on their schedule. The Lions are good. Lions are going to be a playoff team, but just give them a little credit for battling back. But you're supposed to battle back. You still had 3.5 quarters of football. You're not supposed to throw in the towel, but. Yeah, it's a mess. And you talk about there's not going to be a lot of people there next Sunday to watch the Panthers and the Saints try to play football.
Good news, though, for the Saints. The next 2 home games are Panthers and Giants. Okay, so you're going to be favored in both. You should win both. You have to win both, but you should win both, and then you can be 7-7. 7-7, you reset. And at that point, and then you go on the road, and then you got 3 games left, and you gotta go 2-1 in those last 3. But clearly, you have to win these next 2. You should win these next 2, and once you get to 7-7, we'll see where the other teams are at that point. It's just atrocious.
Right now, they lose the tiebreaker to both Atlanta and Tampa
at the moment. Yeah,
at the moment, that could change, but right now, so they're in a hole. There's no question in a hole, and you just said it. Not only should you win the next 2, you have to win the next 2. If they don't win the next 2, say they lose both, you got to fire Dennis Allen and begin the house cleaning.
Well, yeah, if you lose these next 2 at home, then yes, I think you just have to make that call right now, at least just to salvage the fans, so they don't completely jump off the ship and they'll come to the final home game or something.
Well, and 2 times in 3 weeks, Derek Carr in concussion protocol. It's very uncertain whether he even plays against the Panthers Sunday. And I mean, Dennis Allen's going to meet with the media today, and he's going to say, we don't know the answer to that yet. We'll find out later in the week. Tomorrow's a day off. Wednesday, they got to turn in their first injury report as mandated by NFL rules. So it may be Wednesday before we know something about.
By the way, the fans booed a lot throughout the game to Derek Carr, especially there were times where Taysom Hill, when they were, was getting a 6-7 yard gain on first down, and then they'd put Carr back in, and the crowd was booing. I was at the game; it was very loud. The Saints fans have had enough.
Let me ask you this, Ronnie. The third and fourth down of the last Saints possession, Taysom Hill was not on the field. Now, somebody on Twitter said he was injured.
I don't know about. I didn't.
Don't know if he went
paying close enough attention.
I think if he didn't win the injury tent, the announcers would have said something.
Right.
So I don't, but and you've talked for weeks about how much more successful the Saints are when Taysom Hill takes the snap, touches the ball, whatever you want to call it. And for him not to be on the field in third and fourth down in what was the final possession, you didn't know at the moment it was the final possession, but ultimately it became the final possession. If he wasn't hurt, that's a fireable event to not have that guy out there.
The other time there was a third down, like a 3rd and 4, where they took Olave out of the game. And I remember seeing Olave jogging off the field one time, and he wasn't hurt or anything. It's just they wanted a different personnel package in there. And I don't understand why Olave would ever be off the field unless he's hurt. I mean, he is by far your best receiver. What's the whole point of him not being in there?
Yeah, but no, your mom Janet says the announcers did make a commentary. They were confused that he wasn't in there, and then Rick Kelly, the stat that you pointed out, Ronnie, sees that it's a fact that they do better when Taysom Hill touches the football. It's a fact. It's no getting around. It's not a gray area. So that just Saints is just just a disconnect. They're just a mess, total mess. Third place now in the terrible NFC South, and no reason to believe it's going to get any better.
And here we're sitting there watching all these lesser teams trending upwards, and the Saints, who had everything going into the season trending downward. You see the Texans now above 500 and playing well, and they've got C.J. Stroud at quarterback. You got how about the Green Bay Packers the last couple of weeks? And then they beat the Chiefs at home. Jordan Love, he's got 4 games this year, throwing 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. You know what I mean? So he's clearly the real deal for them and a quarterback and their franchise guy. You got the Broncos, obviously. We've talked about them. They got beat, like I said, by the Texans, which is no slouch these days. But I mean, the Broncos, the Texans, the Colts, as you mentioned, the Packers, these were all teams that were hot garbage and expected to be hot garbage going into the year. And then now they're trending all in the right direction. And the Saints, meanwhile, are basically, they lose this week. They're out of it. They're going to be done.
It's craziness out there. The Falcons weren't expecting to be all that great, and now they're leading the division.
I think the Falcons are winning games in spite of themselves, and because they just happen to be playing dumpster fires in between the Saints and the Jets. I'm curious to see if they can hang on the rest of the year. Tonight, the Pelicans play in the quarterfinals of the play-in playoff game. They're a 3-point dog on the road against the Sacramento Kings. If they win, they will head to Vegas for the semifinals later this week. And as we mentioned, Willie Fritz headed to Houston. Tommy, tell us about Court Street as we get out of here.
Well, they had a big weekend, the live music Saturday night, the great Sunday brunch, and they're going to keep doing all that. You just connect on Facebook and Instagram, and you'll know who the music is, all the lunch specials, dinner specials. Jason and the staff do a super job. Full-service bar right there behind me a little bit. Got some daiquiri machines in here that get you ready for holiday time, and they got gift cards. So if you're looking for a different gift card, any denomination you want, they'll put you together a gift card, gift certificate, where people can enjoy breakfast, lunch, or dinner at Court Street Cafe in Port Allen. We want you to check it out as soon as you can.
All right, Tommy, we'll be back on Wednesday for more Sports Shorts Daily. Please like and share this video. We appreciate you watching Sports Shorts, presented by LeBears Casino.